When it comes to spending money on film and television production, nobody can hold a candle to Disney. And that's not really a good thing because, of course, we're talking about how much Disney overspends to get these projects to market compared to their competitors at places like Warner Brothers and Paramount, Sony, so on and so forth. When we look at things like The Acolyte, where Disney spent over $250 million to finish that show, and of course, the numbers are still climbing. We don't have all the data in just yet, but we will probably in the next 6 to 12 months. And now, even more recently, things like Agatha All Along, which allegedly had a much smaller production budget. However, they're really not ringing the bell when it comes to the streaming charts, barely breaking into the top 10, if at all, since the show released just about a month and a half ago. Agatha All Along, just like The Acolyte, continues to try to float its way into the bottom half of the top 10, getting absolutely destroyed by other things, like recently Tulsa King, starring Sylvester Stallone on Paramount Plus, a much smaller streaming service than Disney Plus. And of course, Tulsa King probably coming in with a much lower production budget overall than, say, The Acolyte or things like Secret Invasion, other Marvel projects that hit Disney Plus. So is Disney going to be able to continue the trend, at least that they allegedly began with Agatha All Along, spending far less money, or is this going to continue to be a problem? Last week on the Luminate charts, as a matter of fact, the only thing from the Walt Disney Company that broke in was on the original film side, not even on the television side. Agatha wasn't there. But on the film side, you had Hocus Pocus 2, which wasn't even really new this year. It seemed to have racked up around 1 million views in the U.S. during that measurement week. And if that sounds like a lot, well, take a thought for a moment and realize that the average critical drinker and nerdrotic video on YouTube racks up about the same number of views. Now, granted, those are worldwide, but it goes to show you, if you think guys like Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic are spending 20, 30, 40, or even 100 to 200 to 300 million dollars per video that they put out, well, of course, you'd be sorely mistaken. But that's what Disney is doing for effectively a very similar result.
ESPN and sports lifting up Disney right now in terms of overall ratings. But when it comes to anything non-sports, it is dismal Disney all over again. This is out of Luminate, hosted by Variety. Here's what it says. For the week of October 18 through 24, by the way, that's last week. That's how fast we get these now. Sorry, Nielsen. Streaming originals on television. Take a look. It's Domination by Netflix and Paramount Plus, but mostly Netflix. Yeah, just Netflix. In the top spot, we've got Lincoln Lawyer with estimated 2.4 billion minutes watched. Eat your heart out, Dr. Evil. Billion. Love is Blind comes in at 805 million. Tulsa King in number 3. Monsters. Then Nobody Wants This. Outer Banks. I Am a Killer. The Lincoln Lawyer. Tulsa King. And more Lincoln Lawyers. Holy cow. Lincoln Lawyers are more popular than Lincoln Logs this holiday season. Look at that. Now, why do we have the Lincoln Lawyer up there 3 times and Tulsa King up twice? Because they're that popular. That's different seasons of the same show, all being in the top 10. Amazing. Amazing. Holy cow. If we go down to streaming originals, film. Once upon a time, this was dominated by Disney. Remember, it was the babysitting service. Moana would have been at top. Frozen would have been on here. You would have had Disney movie after Disney movie. No more. They're gone. Only Hocus Pocus 2 up here at Halloween. So what's really leading right now? Well, Woman of the Hour, Brothers, The Shadow Strays, Outside, Sweet Bobby, My Catfish Nightmare. That's terrifying. Lonely Planet, The Mendez Brothers, Justice, and Girl Haunts. Boy, Netflix basically again, but Prime Video has a showing. And then Disney at the bottom with Hocus Pocus 2. But again, once upon a time, this would have absolutely, as in last year, been dominated by Disney. What has happened? Well, in my estimation, and we'll throw this thesis at everybody here on the panel, and they can tell me what they think about it. In my estimation, Disney screwed themselves over by making parents no longer trust them to be a babysitting service. And once that was gone, then all the kiddos get to watch is Bluey. And Bluey doesn't fit on any of these charts because Bluey is acquired. It's not original. And acquired often means expensive. So if we go over to Nielsen, what do we see? Well, this is the acquired chart. And Nielsen publicly is not giving us the numbers for last week. So we have to go back to September. That's as soon as we can get. This is where Disney dominates in acquired materials. Bob's Burgers, Bluey, Family Guy, Grey's Anatomy. It's all Disney stuff. No, this is not the top 10 Disney and Hulu. This is top 10 streaming acquired. Okay? You've got Grey's Anatomy, Gilmore Girls, SpongeBob SquarePants. So you can see, but at the very top, it's Disney and Hulu that are winning. But again, acquired. Disney can't merchandise Bluey the way they can with anything else that they actually own. And Disney is spending big money on some of these properties in order to have them and host them. So, question panel, if you had to guess what's going on with Disney and why they've disappeared from originals, what would you say? Why is Netflix now dominating in a way that they simply were not, even as recently as last year?
Well, you just hit upon it. It's original content. I think people are kind of tired of the same old, same old. And Netflix does give you a little bit more originality than Disney does. Disney's just kind of recycling things, and nobody really cares any longer about watching recycled content. I can watch old stuff, on DVD, or there's a lot of options available to you to watch content. Disney just doesn't seem to be the place to go for that. It seems like you would go to Netflix, you would go to Hulu, you may go to YouTube. Again, I keep bringing YouTube up. You go to a lot of other various platforms to watch original, new, interesting things. I have kids. I have a nephew. I was just hanging out with him yesterday. He has no interest at all in Disney. All right. Which at a 5-year-old, you would think that's insane, but he has no interest in Disney. He'll watch anything else. But if I put on something from Disney, he surfs it. He looks at it for a couple of minutes and then he's moving on. I don't think Disney really resonates with the kids of today. And maybe that's because their ideology is, not kid friendly. It's not doing things kids want. So it's kind of tough to say exactly why folks aren't, but that's my opinion. I don't think people really care to watch the content that Disney makes, and it's just not original. It's not unique.
Well, I got to say, you are 100% correct, and I'm going to back it up with science, or at least a scientific survey here. This out of UCLA, whatever the name of this silly place is, Center for Scholars and Storytellers, University of California, Los Angeles. 1,500 respondents on this. This just came out. And I looked into this because of a ridiculous headline that maybe we can talk about that later. But this is a survey of at least 1,500 people between the ages of 10 to 24 years old. And this is the second year in a row that they've gotten this result. Topics teens say they want to see, and this is 10 to 24-year-olds, by the way. So not necessarily teenagers right here. Rankings for all adolescents. Number 1, hopeful, uplifting content with people beating the odds, action, people with lives like my own, superheroes, which is tied with people with lives like my own. Kind of hilarious. A little bit of projection, I think, right here. You might notice it's down to number 10 before you get to anything that sounds like it might be social change here, mental illness. All the way down at the bottom is non-binary and LGBTQIA+ identities, unless you go up here to the LGBTQIA adolescents, and their responses is the number one thing they want to see is non-binary and LGBTQIA people. So I'm just going to say Agatha all along right now. That is a show that the dialogue is constantly about how Agatha and all of these witches ain't straight. And I'm also going to go over here. I got 3 pieces of data. I was saving this for that Park Place video, but we're kind of talking about it anyways. This 9.3 million views in 7 days. We talked about it on this channel, or at least Valiant talked about it on this channel. That's a pretty slow rate right there when you divide that 9.3 million by 7. Well, they just dropped a new figure. Agatha All Along, episode 7, Bewitches, with 4.2 million views just after a day of streaming. So they still haven't admitted what the premiere is in Pro. I have to read this. Agatha all along is still bewitching audiences ahead of its finale week. Disney says episode 7, which was directed by showrunner Jack Schaefer, drove 4.2 million views globally.
Let's take a moment. Let's all just soak in the spin. Soak in the spin for a moment of that first statement, because the author here, and maybe it's not intentional, but the author here is hoping that you don't do what you just did. And that is have the original. I mean, shows are supposed to grow. Their audiences are supposed to increase over time as they begin picking up new viewers. This is so funny. Okay, go ahead. I had to take a moment to be like, how much fun is this? That anyway.
Well, so Disney provided them the math accidentally because they wanted to brag. Directed by Jack Schaefer, drove 4.2 million views globally after just one day of streaming, which is up 35% from the premiere episode's performance. So we now know then that there was only 3.1 million viewers on that first episode of Agatha all along. So there you go.
Whoa, Jonas, explainify the math for those out there who might have been put out in the wilderness a little bit by me interjecting. Explain that.
4.2 million divided by 1.35 when you're reversing out a 35% increase. That would be 1.35. You get 3.1 million views on the first episode of Agatha all along. So
okay, I see what you're saying. So because the first episode had the second episode bundled with it to try to increase the statistics.
Well, I think they going back here, they are just saying the first episode. First episode nets 9.3 million views in 7 days. This is the one they're trying to hide. And then they're not even mentioning what the second episode got. So if we're going to the Nielsen figures on this, the Nielsen figures will include both episodes.
And we're also, by the way, we're also only getting 24 hours for this episode. So we don't know how much this is tailing off, because the most ardent fans are going to watch it in the first 24. But that doesn't mean that you're actually maintaining that increase, that percentage increase over your full week. You could actually be declining while you're getting a stronger fan base. So, for example, let's say that as this has become clearly the show that leans the hardest into a particular demographic, I'm wording this carefully. As it continues to do that, Disney, by the way, is not so careful. I think somebody's referred to it as the gayest show ever. Anyway, you might get a very strong following of a very small group that boosts the first 24 hours, and then there's just nobody else. I think that's a strong possibility at this point. And otherwise, why wouldn't Disney just give the full week and be like, look, we're up totally, apples to apples.
Right. Well, because Netflix does that and they're bragging. And again, I have to go back to the data. Oh, wait, this is the previous year where they said the exact same thing, ranking for all adolescents. This issue was dead last among all respondents ages 10 to 24, which is the next generation here. Disney has no next generation at this point. So they will get whatever percentage of the population down here at the bottom. But even that wasn't enough to move the needle here. When this group right here ranks at number 1, it means it's not affecting the overall if this issue is ranked last. So
and I would just recommend to Disney, be careful. Don't push Jonas, because he has these for every year going back to the 1920s and for every demographic. I've seen it. It's a little weird when you start to point out Amish preferences in the 30s for television. I don't even understand how that works.
This company is so dumb. If I had money, I would not give it to them to make anything.
No financial advice, folks, here on this channel.
Well, I'm not talking about stock. I'm just talking about whether or not I would literally pay them, whether or not I would back one of their productions at this point, because they seem to have no idea what they're doing. It would be, at this point, I would have more confidence if they paid someone outside of the company to make a movie for them. If they licensed out one of their IPs, that would be the thing that I think would move the stock price up. Even the percentage that they would have to give up on the box office in order to do that. That's what I think Disney needs to do at this point, instead of trusting in whatever broken system that they have, keep banging with a hammer, hoping that it's going to produce another Avengers Endgame.
But Jonas, did you know that on our panel right now, we have someone, a fellow, and I'm going to paraphrase, but lightly that we have someone on the panel who, when he watched Agatha, and I think it's episode 6, and he's already smiling. I saw the stash twitch. I know what he saw a Charmin toilet paper commercial, hygienic lube paper, right? He saw an ad come up, and he was angry when he came on the live review on the Pro Show. He was angry because he said that he wanted the Charmin commercial to just continue playing rather than go back and have to watch more of Agatha. He said that he would rather watch cartoon bears describe how to wipe than have to watch the slop that is Agatha. Lauren, do you have any thoughts
to be fair, when you're in a situation like that, when you reach for the toilet paper, it means you're done with the other part of it.
Okay, I can't beat that. Lauren, just start talking. I can't beat that. Good job, Jonas.
Not to mention the fact that I think that the people that make the Charmin commercials and animations actually believe in their product and message.
The animation is cartoon toilet paper bears.
It's just not good. And I think there's another problem here. We were going back to kind of what's going on with Disney here. Why are they like this? What's going on this year? I think there's another factor here, and that is they worked very hard to try and stave off Peltz's attempt to get a seat on the board. And they made a lot of promises to investors about what they were going to try and do. But they're also having all kinds of problems in the parks. I think they're just fighting a multi-front war right now on every single front. And it's leading to an extreme lack of focus. I think they don't know how to correct because they're trying to swat out too many fires. I think, in a way, this last attempt of Peltz to get a seat on the board may have been the thing that's kind of done them in. I think they expended too many resources to try and stave off that attempt, and it's going to kill them anyway.
Across so many divisions, you look at it, and I just feel like we're at that quiet before the storm hits. Like the mainstream really hasn't caught on to how bad things are at Disney yet. And I think next year is when that curtain is going to be pulled back. Derek, do you agree?
I do, because honestly, the audiences have checked out. And I think mainstream media is starting to see it as well. Audiences have checked out. We are not locked in with where Disney is at this moment. We are more or less looking at it as an afterthought, whether it's Marvel or Star Wars or whatever. We're not looking at Disney as our go-to, which is what we did back in the day. Like 5 years ago, Disney had 7 films that hit $1 billion. I mean, that was insane that 1 year. And now we are at the point where Disney has become an absolute joke. So, yeah, I think that Disney is an afterthought. I think that Hollywood is starting to catch up with that. And I think we'll eventually get there. They'll join us in the light eventually somewhere down the line. But right now, they're still trying to figure things out. Where is Disney at? Why aren't the kids watching anymore? What happened to the family audiences? We've been talking about it for the last couple of years. You've abandoned your family audience for ideology, for some silly agenda that doesn't represent families. And Disney has been a family brand forever. That's how Disney started. That's what Disney has always been. That's what people expect from Disney. So when you go away from that, this is what you get. So they shouldn't be surprised.
And there's two misconceptions that are happening that I think they're saving Disney to some degree in the public eye. Misconception number one is Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine did very well this year. Disney's back. That's misconception number one, because 2 exceptions, especially one that was greenlit under a CEO you ran off and was produced and made and written sort of separate from everything you do. 2 exceptions to the rule does not constitute a pattern. We need to see what's going to happen in the next year or two, because it has been since 2019 that this company has been flopping and flopping like a dead fish in a barrel of dead fish. The second misconception for Disney from the general public is that Bluey is Disney. Bluey is one of the hottest little kid properties out there. If you were to put Bluey as its own, how when you go on Disney Plus, it has Star Wars and Marvel at the top, the big parts of Disney. If Bluey was its own category, it's probably bigger than Star Wars right now. It might be bigger than Marvel. And the average person doesn't realize, Disney pays to have Bluey. It's not owned by Disney. So I think those two things sort of misconstrue where Disney's at. And I think the general public's going to be more aware as time goes on.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.